Social structures. Thursday, May 14, 2020. 8:27 p.m. Social structures.
Macrosociology versus microsociology. Two different analyses of sociology to study societies. Need a place to start or it'll be overwhelming. Individual people, different groups, and communities/cultures/subcultures in a population. Macrosociology, large-scale perspective, looking at big phenomena that affect big portion of population. Social structures and institutions, whole civilizations/populations. Looking for patterns and effects the big picture has on lives on small groups. Broad social trends in cities, and statistical data, as long as you're careful about not making wrong interpretations. Deals with matters like poverty, war, health care, world economy. Functionalism comes from macrosociology, looks at society as a whole, and how institutions that make up the society adapt to keep society stable and functioning. Conflict theory is also a macro perspective. The idea society is made of institutions that benefit powerful and create inequalities. Large groups are at odds until conflict is resolved. Microsociology, face-to-face interactions, families, schools, other social interactions. Interpretive analysis of the society, look at sample of society, and how individual interactions would affect larger groups in society. Doctor-patient interactions or family dynamics. Symbolic interactionism, social theory that's a micro-perspective, focuses on the individual and significance they give to objects, events, symbols, etc. in their lives. Social institutions. Institutions are essential parts of a society, police stations, hospitals, businesses. Impose structure on how individuals behave. Guide what we do. They don't need any one individual, just need many of them, and each individual is very replaceable. Whereas without institution, major changes can occur to individual. Imbalance in power. A form for filling the need. Sometimes need to be redesigned if they are to be helpful to society, businesses. We think of institutions as a business/corporation. Sociologists thinks of social structures, governments, families, hospitals, schools, laws, religion, businesses, etc. All continue without any one individual. Social institutions, education, family, religion. Education, family, religion. Each of these institutions play a fundamental role in creating and supporting society, and each shape the individual in that society. Education, more than going to school, but there's a hidden curriculum. We learn how to stand in line, wait our turn, and treat our peers. We internalize social inequalities when boys and girls are treated differently by their teachers. Expectation of teachers affects how students learn. Teachers tend to get what they expect. Teachers put students in categorizations with different expectations, but what if categorization is wrong? Sometimes limiting factor comes from outside the classroom. Sometimes limiting factor comes from outside classroom. Schools experience educational segregation and stratification because we fund schools through property taxes, which is why different districts are funded differently. Residential segregation. Family defined by many forms of kinship, including marriage, blood, or adoption. Small nuclear family is more emphasized. Different family values go with different social values of family and economy. Rural families were production-based, so large. Urban families consumption-based, so more strained. Marriage, when people join together. Now people can experience multiple marriages. Serial monogamous. Why divorce is more common, and creates tension. Some families also contain violence, and child abuse. Also abuses through neglect. Children's basic needs aren't met. Elder abuse also occurs when family isn't ready for responsibility of taking care of elders and expense of nursing homes. Spouse abuse also common, and not only physical but also psychological. Women's shelters don't always get kids, while social stigma of men not getting abused keeps them quiet. Religion. How religious a person is can range from spiritual/private to being in an institutionalized religion, celebrating certain holidays, etc. Ecclesia. Dominant religious organization that includes most members of society, ex-Lutheranism in Sweden and Islam in Iran. Churches are established religious bodies in a larger society. Sects tend to be smaller and are established in protest of established church. They break away from churches. Ex-Mormon/Amish. Cults are more radical, reject values of outside society. Rise when there's a breakdown of societal belief systems, but usually short-lived because depend on inspirational leader who will only live so long. Secularization is the weakening of social and political power of religious organizations as religious involvement declines. Fundamentalism. Reaction to secularization, go back to strict religious beliefs. Create social problems when people become too extreme. Social institutions. Government, economy, health and medicine. Government. We give government the power and authority to manage the country. Some governments take into account will of people, like democracy. Others rule autonomously like dictatorships, no consent of citizens. Communism. Classless, moneyless community where all property is owned by community. Monarchy. Government embodied by single person, king/queen is the figurehead. Economy. Capitalism. Private ownership of production with market economy based on supply and demand. Socialism. Motivated by what benefits society as whole, common ownership of production that focuses on human needs and economic demands. Division of labor in government and economy is functionalist. Everyone is required to have responsibility in society. We value certain labors differently. Ex-garbage men not as valued as athletes. We value jobs that require lots of specialization, rather than jobs essential in our society. Creates inequalities because not everyone has access to those valued professions, due to limited education/resources. Healthcare and medicine. Medicine exists to keep people healthy. Medicalization occurs when human conditions previously considered normal get defined as medical conditions and are subject to studies, diagnosis, and treatment. Mental health type issues and physical issues like birth. People are overdiagnosed. Discovery of HIV. Sick role expectation in society that allows you to take a break from responsibilities. But if you don't get better or return, you're viewed as deviant. Delivery of healthcare. Massive inequalities in terms of access. We take care of elderly through Medicaid and Medicare, and children through health child insurance. But people in between are left behind, those who populate working force. Affordable Care Act is trying to fix this but too early to tell. Spend a lot of dollar on healthcare without desired outcomes, because we invest a lot more in helping people when they are sick instead of preventative medicine. Illness experience. Process of being ill, and how people cope with illness. Being ill can change a person's self-identity. Diagnosis of chronic disease can take over your life, where every decision revolves around the disease. Stigmas associated with certain diseases like mental illness and STDs. How people experience disease varies too if they have access to resources like palliative care. Social epidemiology looks at health disparities through social indicators like race, gender, and income distribution, and how social factors affect a person's health. Correlation between social advantages/disadvantages and distribution of health plus disease. Functionalism. Functionalism is a system of thinking based on ideas of Emile Durkheim that look at society from large-scale perspective and how each part helps keep society stable. It says that society is heading towards equilibrium. Local businesses must adapt to new ways to cater to new ways to customers. Durkheim imagined a balance between institutions and social facts. Institutions are structures that meet the needs of society, like education systems, financial institutions, marriage, laws, etc. Social facts are ways of thinking and acting formed by society that existed before any one individual, and will still exist after any individual is dead. Unique objects that can't be influenced and have a coercive effect over individual, only noticed when we resist. X. The law. Others are moral regulations, religious fates, and social currents like suicide/birth rate. One person committing suicide has no effect of suicide on society. Society is dependent on structures that create it, like cell is dependent on parts that make it up. Intended consequences of institutions are manifest functions. X. Businesses provide a service. Unintended consequences. X. Schools expose students to new activities, and businesses connect people across society. Latent functions, indirect effects of institutions. Social dysfunction is process that has undesirable consequences, and may reduce the stability of society. Durkheim questioned, how do societies stay together? Small societies are held together by similarities, but only works for small ones. In large societies, individuals become interdependent on each other as everyone is specialized in different roles. In functionalism, a change to production/distribution/coordination will force others to adapt to maintain stable state society. Social change threatens mutual dependence of people in that society. Institutions adapt only just enough to accommodate change to maintain mutual interdependence. Problems. Functionalism focuses entirely on institutions without regard for individual, only acknowledged. Also largely unable to explain social change and conflict, so focused on equilibrium, little change and conflict is modeled. Conflict theory focuses on inequalities of different groups in society, based on ideas of Karl Marx that believed society evolved through several stages: feudalism-capitalism-socialism. 19th century Europe was capitalist, rich upper class called bourgeoisie, and poor lower class was proletariat and majority. Upper class had more power. Lower class depended on upper class, but upper class also depended on lower class for their labor. Significant inequality, which Marx believed led to change. Lower class united to create class consciousness. The thesis was that bourgeoisie ran factories, and working class provided labor. Desire of working class to change was the antithesis. Thesis plus antithesis can't exist peacefully. One side is leave things, other side is looking for change. Struggle would lead to a compromise, a synthesis of the two by creating a new state. Would eventually become new thesis. Ludwig Gumplowicz expanded on Marx by proposing that society is shaped by war/conquest, and cultural/ethnic conflicts lead to certain groups becoming dominant over others. Max Weber said he did not believe collapse of capitalism was inevitable, but argued that several factors moderate people's reaction to inequality. The equal rights and women's suffrage movements were all conflicts that resolved in a new thesis. Conflict theory models drastic changes that occur in a society, but doesn't explain the stability a society can experience, how society is held together, unity, and doesn't like the status quo. Social constructionism. Social constructionism argues that people actively shape their reality through social interactions. It's something constructed, not inherent. Things are social products made of the values of the society that created it. A social construct is concept/practice everyone in society agrees to treat a certain way regardless of its inherent value, X money. Social constructionism is theory that knowledge is not real, and only exists because we give them reality through social agreement. Nations, books, etc. don't exist in absence of human society. The self is a social construct too. Our identity is created by interactions with other people, and our reactions to the other people. Two types, weak and strong. Weak social constructionism proposes that social constructs are dependent on brute facts, which are the most basic and fundamental facts. X brute facts are what explain quarks and atoms, not the atoms themselves. Institutional facts are created by social conventions and do rely on other facts. X money depends on the paper we have given value. Strong social constructionism states that whole of reality is dependent on language and social habits. All knowledge is social construct and no brute facts. We created idea of quarks and everything we know to explain it. No facts that just exist. Main criticism to social constructionism is it doesn't consider effects of natural phenomenon on society, and for strong social constructionism it has difficulties explaining those phenomena, because they don't depend on human speech or action. Strong SC only explains reality through thoughts of humans, not using fundamental brute facts. Symbolic interactionism takes a small-scale view of society, focuses on small interactions between individuals like hanging out with a friend. Sees society as build-up of everyday typical interactions. Addresses the subjective meanings people believe to be true meaning, is the central aspect of human behavior. Humans ascribe meanings to things, and act towards those things based on ascribed meaning. Language allows humans to generate meaning through interactions, and humans modify meanings to thought processes. Particularly interested in symbols use that people use to contribute values/beliefs to others. Developed by George Herbert Mead, believed development of individual was a social process, as were the meanings individuals assigned to things. People change based on interactions with objects, events, ideas, others, and assign meaning to things to decide how to act. Herbert Bloomer continued Mead's work. He proposed 3 tenets to explain symbolic interactionism. 1. We act based on meaning we've given something. X tree is placed to rest. 2. Different people assign different meanings to things. We give meaning to things based on social interactions. Someone tells us tree is infested with ants. But we have different views of the tree, and we act differently. 3. The meaning we give something isn't permanent. Something bites my back, so might not sit under next one I find. Criticism doesn't ask same questions as large-scale sociologists do. Sometimes considered as supplemental instead of full theory, because restricted to small interactions between individuals. But gives different perspective necessary for fully understanding society. How societies can change when created/recreated by social interactions. Feminist theory. A contemporary approach of looking at world from macro perspective, developed from feminism movement originating from conflict theory by focusing on stratifications/inequalities in society. It examines women's social roles in education, family, and workforce. It looks beyond more common male-based perspective to focus on gender inequalities in society. Women face discrimination, objectification, oppression, and stereotyping. Different types of feminist theory. 1. Gender differences. Expectations for gender are passed down from generation to generation. Examines how women's position in social situations differ from men. Different values with femininity than men. Seen as soft, care, submissive. And different social roles, women stay home while men go to war. Objectified as sexual instruments. 2. Gender inequality central to all behavior. Women's subordination is viewed as inherent feature. Our society is a patriarchy. Men are governing body as heads of families and communities. Married women have higher stress levels than married men/unmarried women, and have less influence in public sphere. Men occupy higher-paying jobs. Ben Bars began his life as women, and after sex change he noticed people thought his research was much better than his sister Barbara's. However, Barbara was the same person. 3. Gender oppression. Women are not only unequal as men, but they're oppressed and abused. Institution of family is especially beneficial to men. Family was split into 2 types of labor. Domestic labor was done by women, while men worked outside home in labor. Without men working, family wouldn't survive. Created educational and economic gap between men and women. 4. Structural oppression. Women's oppression and inequality are due to capitalism, patriarchy, and racism. Direct parallel to conflict theory. Women like working class are exploited because of capital model, but not all women express oppression in same way. Linked to race, class, sexual orientation, age, and disability. Men are associated with mind, while women are associated with body. Feminist theory is not an attempt to replace men's different perspective on society to point out inequalities between men and women due to institutions of society. Rational choice theory and exchange theory. Rational choice theory and exchange theory center on economics. Rational choice theory, people not only motivated by money, but do what's best to get more good. Main assumption is the idea that everything people do is fundamentally rational. The person is acting as if they were weighing costs and benefits of each action. People act in self-interest, driven by personal desires and goals. How do we calculate value of these actions? Social resources being exchanged: time, information, prestige, etc. 3 main assumptions. Completeness, every action can be ranked. Transitivity, since A is preferable to B, A is also preferable to C. Independence of irrelevant alternatives, if I have a fourth option, won't change order of how I ranked first 3 options. Just add it into existing order. Exchange theory, application of rational choice theory to social interactions. Looks at society as series of interactions between individuals. Used to study family relationships, partner selection, parenting, etc. Sexual selection, natural selection arising through preference for one sex for characteristics in individuals of the other sex. Social selection, idea that an individual's health can influence their social mobility. Also that social conditions can affect reproductive rates of individuals in a population. Interactions are determined by weighing rewards and punishments of each action. Basic principle behind exchange theory, behavior of individual in interaction, can be figured out by comparing rewards and punishments. Assumptions, people seek to rationally maximize their profits, behavior results in a reward is likely to be repeated, more often reward is available the less valuable it is, interactions operate within social norms, people have information they need to make rational choices, human fulfillment comes from other people, and standards people use to evaluate interaction changes over time. Reward to one is punishment for another. What kind of interactions? Self-interest and interdependence. We form relationships to benefit ourselves, no one is self-sufficient. Subjective interactions of rewards plus punishments of each interaction. Critiques, are we really rational? Some people's choices are limited by gender/ethnicity/class, and make choice not in best interest. And why some people follow social norms that act in best interest of others. And is it really possible to explain every social structure by actions of individuals? Relationships aren't always linear too. Social theories overview. Functionalism, how society can exist over time. Society is always trying to come to an equilibrium. Institutions remain constant and only make minor change when stability is lost. Business institution had to adapt to online shopping boom. Conflict theory, how societies changes and adapt over time through conflict. 2 opposing positions would merge to create a new society where both are content. Social constructionism, what society is rather than how it exists/changes. Everything is created from the mind of society. Agreement that something has meaning and value that it doesn't have intrinsically, money. Everything only has value because everyone agrees it has value, we construct the world around us. Symbolic interactionism puts a lot of focus on individual and how they behave based on meanings we give to things, tree equals shade. People are created by their society and act based on past experiences and meanings they've given things. Not everyone gives same meaning to same things. We interact with the world to give it meaning. Functionalism equals looking at stability of society, conflict theory equals how society changes, social constructionism equals how things are given value, symbolic interactionism equals how individuals act. Feminist theory, macro-level perspective on society, focusing on gender inequalities inherent to patriarchal capitalist societies, where men occupy governing positions in family and community. Both men and women often forced into gender-based roles. Focuses on gender differences, gender inequalities, gender oppression, and structural oppression. Rational choice theory, people always take rational actions, weighing costs and benefits of each action to gain most benefit. 3 assumptions: completeness, transitivity, and independence of irrelevant alternatives. Exchange theory application of RCT to social interaction. Family, work, interpersonal relationships. People behave with goal of maximizing own rewards while minimizing punishments, and people can make rational choices in social norm, and self-interest and interdependence guide interactions, and from relationships from cost-benefit analysis. Relating social theories to medicine. 1. Functionalism. If we look at medicine from this point of view, when people become ill, medicine ensures they return to functional state. Conflict theory equals how society changes. Social constructionism equals how things. Being sick is detrimental to well-being of society as a whole. Assumption is you're not supposed to participate in society when sick, affecting society on small scale. Medicine stabilizes social system in emergency situations like earthquakes, etc. to provide medical assistance needed. Day to day, it improves quality of life for aging population to allow them to contribute longer to society. 2. Conflict theory. Wealthier people can pay for best medical care. The poor can't afford the deductibles/insurance, so they skip hospitals and are sick for longer. Unequal access to valuable resources in society, education, housing, jobs, leads to health disparities and limited access to medical care. Power struggle between different interest groups can affect health of individual, factories versus people living nearby. 3. Social constructionism. We attach different meanings to different behaviors, and have preconceptions of different people, stereotypes. We have preconceptions about different races, genders, and subcultures. Assumptions dangerous to medical profession affect how you treat patient and their diagnosis. There are stereotyped assumptions on both sides. Patient may feel some symptoms aren't important enough to mention, or doctor makes false assumption based on how patient appears. Can't declare characteristic of person based on circumstance. People who don't work can still afford healthcare while those who work hard can't afford it. Medicalization. Patients/doctors construct illness out of ordinary behavior. 4. Symbolic interactionism. Doctor-patient relationship, given meanings to lab coat/stethoscope can affect interaction. Important for realize the meaning the patient has given to tools of medicine. Lab coat is sign of authority. Changes in society recently, medicalization of society, where everything has a medical fix. Standards of beauty have made many undergo unneeded plastic surgery, or have C-sections. Normal behaviors are being shown as illnesses. Depression. 5. Feminist theory. Medicine is still a male-dominated field, heads of doctors and hospitals usually men, and disparity in jobs/salary between the two translates into a disparity in power. 6. Rational choice exchange theories. What's purpose of medical system as a whole? Or is it a capitalist competition to earn the most money? People run every aspect of medical system, and those people will make decisions that benefit themselves more than random sick stranger, may affect why people go to doctor or not. Some people avoid doctors if they don't think it will benefit them. Self-interested behavior of people in charge will trickle down and affect patients. Outside these theories, where you live can affect your health, food deserts, and nearly impossible to get nutrition a body needs from only these sources. Some neighborhoods have no gyms/playgrounds.